Please welcome John Bush to the stage, everybody.
All right. Okay. I'm going to pull it Dan. I got a speech prepared and notes, but we're just going to throw it out the door. Let me see. I got 2 mics, too. You guys are in a lot of trouble. All right. My name's John Bush, and I want to thank everybody for being a part of this incredible event. Big ups to Mr. Derek Bros. Give it up for Derek Bros, ladies and gentlemen. Woo! And his lovely lady Miriam and her sister and the We Are Not Zombies crew over there. Woo! After 6 days straight, they're looking a little bit like zombies now. No, they could probably do another 2 days. Derek was like, we were thinking about doing 7 days. I was like, what? This is a marathon, but oh my God, it's so amazing to spend so much time with each and every one of you and get to know you. And one of the insights that I've gained over the course of this week is that we're winning. We are winning. This movement has grown by leaps and bounds, and everybody is feeling so empowered and inspired. And there's so many incredible things going on all across the globe. It is a global movement, and I just want everyone to really take stock of that and to never lose sight of it. Of course, when we're here in person at this event, everyone's all pumped up and the vibe is high. And when you go back home, sometimes people get caught back in the monotony of day-to-day life, or as Napoleon Hill called it, the hypnotic rhythm, where you're just going through the grind and back to the old boring stuff. I want to encourage you, if you're ever feeling down, if you read a scary headline about some crazy policy or deportation this or technocracy that, just never lose sight of the success that we are having in this movement. And one of the things that I want to convey as part of my talk today is that we are already so damn free that the New World Order is shaking in its boots, and there's not a damn thing anyone or any agenda or any government can do to stop us from realizing the pure light and divinity that lies within each and every one of us. Yeah. Okay. All right. So one of the things that Derek said at the onset, he said, if you have an awareness of what's going on in the world, if you've quote unquote been red-pilled, then you have an obligation to do something about it. Do you guys vibe with that? Do you guys feel duty-bound or some obligation, right? As libertarians and freedom people, often we're like, obligation? Nobody tells me what to do. But I genuinely believe that if you have this knowledge and if you have gifts to share, which we all do, even if you haven't found those gifts, then not only are we duty-bound to our fellow human beings, but I believe that we are on a mission from God to change the path of humanity, because there's a lot of darkness in the world, and it doesn't have to be that way. So I really want to encourage everyone. That's something I've been getting deeper into spirituality and studying the teachings of Jesus Christ and other great spiritual teachers. And it's something that I've taken a lot of faith in, because as we continue to reach to greater heights, there continues to be greater and greater resistance. And I'd like to share something about technical analysis trading that I learned trading cryptocurrency that I've since applied to the work that I've done with self-development. All right, does anybody ever trade crypto or stocks or anything? Yeah. All right. So I did it for a while. I was pretty good at it and made some money. Don't tell the IRS. What? Shit. But I kind of felt like I wasn't really contributing much. I was just staring at a screen and a bunch of candlesticks going up and down, and I didn't feel like I was giving back to the world. But nonetheless, I learned about this concept of support and resistance. So you guys know, even if you haven't traded, prices go up and down, and there's these green and red candlesticks or lines that show the price of something. Well, prices have a tendency to bounce between support or the floor. Let's say $90,000 with Bitcoin. 90,000, 90,500, 91, 90,000, right? They bounce between support and resistance. 92, 94, 95, 90, 99, 100. And then they go to 100, but it's like, we don't have the momentum to push through resistance. Okay. Prices have a tendency to do this over and over and over and over and over. And since traders know that, then they kind of manifest it. And so when it comes to self-development work, as we continue to do bigger and bigger things, as we continue to push through our comfort zone, we may find that we come up against resistance, right? Just the same, if we have some struggle or challenges in our life, we may find ourselves coming back down to support. And the challenge is, if we allow those struggles to get the best of us and we step into a place of wallowing and self-deprecation and fear, doubt, uncertainty, and overwhelm, we could bust through the floor down to a new floor of darkness. Just the same, we could push through the resistance and reach new heights. And there's a tendency when you push through the resistance that the previous resistance becomes the new floor. And now we've grown and there's lessons. So I'm going to share some stories about the journey that I've gone on along with my lovely wife and some of our community when it comes to exiting and building and getting outside of the city, buying land, doing the homestead thing, and building a community. And then the resistance and the support that I've come across that's made a big difference in my life. Do we have any self-development, self-help type folks in the audience? Let me see a show of hands. All right, cool. I just really want to encourage everyone that doesn't consider themselves a self-help or self-development. It could be practical success type stuff like Tony Robbins. It could be spiritual stuff as well. How long have I been talking? Like 3 minutes? 4 minutes? Okay, good. All right. Now I'm starting the timer. I left the timer off. We'll be here all evening. So I just really want to encourage everyone to become obsessed with self-development, because we can learn the tactics and the strategies all day long. But if our own limiting beliefs prevent us from implementing those tactics and strategies whenever we start to become uncomfortable, then we're not really going to be able to achieve our full potential. So I really want to encourage you guys to get really, really, really connected with self-development, spiritual work. Some of the people that raised their hand, who are some of y'all's gurus that you follow? Tony Robbins, he's great. He was one of the first guys I got into. Ed Milet, total badass. What else? Greg Radin, okay. Malcolm X, nice. Anything else? Satoshi Nakamoto, all right. He's got some good insights. Joe Dispenza, okay. What about spiritual self-development leaders? Of course, we got big ups to Jesus Christ, right? Eckhart Tolle, the Buddha, Dave Chappelle. What? Oh, yeah, okay, all right. Your mom. Okay, good. Okay, good. All right. So I have found that in times of great struggle and pain, leaning on these teachings, internalizing these teachings has made a world of difference in my life. It wasn't that long ago. It was quite a long ago that I went through a really, really ugly divorce that was extremely difficult on me and my children. And I had already been primed with self-development work, Tony Robbins, Buddhism, nonviolent communication. I'd started reading Napoleon Hill, who taught that within every adversity lies the seed of an equal or greater benefit. And were it not for these teachings and basically programming myself to understand that in spite of challenges, loss, and difficulties, there's always lessons and wisdom to gain so I can become a better version of myself, I would have been a total mess. So when this happened, my life came down to support. And had it busted through and I began blaming myself and wallowed in victim mode or turned to substance abuse, then I could have really crashed through. But instead, I saw that there was turmoil in my life. I saw there was chaos and uncertainty, and I saw that this chaos and uncertainty was having a very negative effect on my children. So I decided that it was my responsibility this time to become the best version of myself that I possibly could be, so I can lift myself, my children out of it. And in doing so, I managed to manifest the most incredible woman into my life that has been so important to me. So that was the support, tiptoeing along there, moved back in with my parents for a few months. And that does a whole lot to your ego, of course, but it's like, it's all good. I'm here, and my mom makes some damn good meals. And my kids were there too. And eventually she's like, Mijo, you got to go. Anyway, so that was support. But because I was programmed and primed with the self-development, and I understood that this is only temporary and that there are lessons that God and the universe and the creator are gifting me in this moment, I managed to take those lessons, internalize them, and continue on my journey towards growth and self-development. But it wouldn't be long before I hit resistance. Now, one of those resistance points, of course, was COVID-19, the plandemic, the scamdemic. You guys remember that? Sometimes we kind of just lose sight about how hardcore that whole experience was. Well, there was a lot of people that went into victim mode. Lockdowns, woe is me, business shut down, lost my job. And I don't want to denigrate folks that went through real struggle, but I do also want to point out that we have to guard ourselves from victimhood, because victimhood is such an easy place to be, because it allows you to shirk. Is that a thing? Shirk? Let's roll with it. It allows you to shirk responsibility and instead blame others for your circumstances. But in all reality, successful people, well-developed, mindset-loving people take responsibility for everything in their lives. Every single thing, we've played a role in manifesting it into our lives. So we got to avoid victimhood and step into a place of empowerment. And so there was lockdowns in the city of Austin. It was like, you can't leave the house unless you're essential. And I thought to myself, what can I do to make myself essential? So I started going from gas station to gas station selling colloidal silver hand sanitizer, because there was like a shortage on hand sanitizer. In all honesty, the first month or two of COVID, I was like, this is crazy. I saw videos of people dying in China. And I've been aware of the New World Order since 2002. So I guess they even got me. But I do remember one day I went out to pump gas and I was using my little hand sanitizer on my hands. And I was like, what the hell am I doing? I'm literally like, the virus is all around us. In all reality, viruses are all around us. Kick him off the stage. Viruses aren't real. That's blasphemy. I really liked what that guy had to say up until that point. But nonetheless, I realized, like, what the hell is going on? This is absolute craziness. And that's where I started to like really see through the nonsense. But in the meantime, I had the most profitable month that I had ever had in my entire life at the height of lockdowns, because I chose to seize the opportunity to become empowered and not to wallow in that victimhood. Okay, so there's always problems that are going to present themselves, but there's always a solution. Where's my buddy here that was like, this whole solution thing, we need to avoid talking about solutions because that emphasizes problems. Where is he? All right, okay. So avoid the victimhood, step into a place of empowerment. It was also during this time that we revived the Central Texas Freedom Cell community. So this whole Freedom Cell, yeah, where are my Freedom Cell peeps at? Woo! All right, so the Freedom Cell thing was an idea back in 2014, 2015. It kind of sprinkled around here and there. Thank God Derek caught wind of it and really made some cool stuff happen in Houston, and then used his platform to spread it even further. But in all honesty, before COVID, it was just kind of limping along, and there were some big groups here and there, but it wasn't a giant global network that it is today. There was around 1,000 people that were participating, signed up on the website, freedomcells.org. Well, with COVID, of course, people now were like, what the heck's going on in the world? We're all freaked out. I know that this audience is different, but please allow yourselves to be the person that's consistently and persistently taking action towards greater freedom, prosperity, and community, because a lot of people only act when there's an emergency. And if you wait to act till there's an emergency, then you're going to be more easily manipulated and controlled, and you're operating from a reactionary paradigm, which in turn makes it easier for you to be leveraged towards supporting Donald Trump or doing some kind of nonsense that's not in alignment with what it is you truly want. So everyone's freaked out, lockdowns, you can't get together with more than 5 or 10 people in a room or whatever the hell the rule was. We didn't follow it. And we organized a giant Freedom Cell meetup, and there was like 65 people that showed up. And it was a time when there was a lot of fear and uncertainty. Speaking of fear, we started these meetings, and about the second or third one, we were having the meetings at somebody's community space where they do concerts and ecstatic dance and stuff. And there was this guy that was like, I was leading the meeting, And he started like undermining me and trying to make it appear as though I was going to get the owner of the establishment in trouble. And he just injected all this fear, like, we got to watch out for this place. We have to protect this place. We shouldn't be meeting up here. When in all reality, that's what people needed in that moment. Thankfully, the room was of the mindset that this is what we need. Let's not kowtow to fear. That was a conversation that had it. So that sprang up during the meeting. So I just really want to encourage you guys. Fear is a very powerful motivator. There's lessons that we can learn from fear, but in all reality, we can't allow fear to dictate our decisions, because fear, you say false events appearing real, more often than not, the government, the predator class, it's a boogeyman that we build up in our own minds. And in all reality, they only have that power which we grant to them. So when you can make a conscious choice to no longer allow them to control you, that, my friends, is when we experience true freedom. When in spite of what's going on in the outside, we are at peace internally. That is when we become sovereign. Are you with me? Yeah. All right. Okay. I also want to share at this time, this is something that springs up because I know there's a lot of people in our community that have broken relationships with family members. Maybe there was some trauma because of the vaccines. Maybe there was some trauma because how you're raising your kids and your parents, their grandparents aren't happy with it. Maybe you're one of those folks that just word vomits all over your family during Thanksgiving because your ego wants to be pet and loved because you felt like the black sheep your whole life. I was that back many years ago. Now there's somebody else that took my place in my family that does that. But I just want to share with you guys, what's more important than being right or proving your family wrong is having a strong bond and a loving, genuine relationship with your family. We need to set our differences aside and just come together and recognize that is critical. That's important. And I share that because my uncle Ernest, who back in 2004 had a W04. You remember George W. Bush? He had a W04 bumper sticker. And I was already awake and anti-war and anti-George Bush, although I thought I was a Democrat. Saw through that later. But he later got turned on to Alex Jones and replaced the W04 with the InfoWars bumper sticker. But he was quite extreme, and I wasn't there. I don't think this would have gone down had I not been there. But he got in a huge shouting match with my dad. And my dad's awake too. He used to work at the underground bookstore that I used to operate for a couple years. But he was just kind of perturbed about my uncle, who was so vehement against the masks and like really ugly about it. It's one thing to be like, hey, these masks are kind of silly. I don't even think they work. I'm not going to wear one. You should consider not wearing it. It's another thing to be like, you guys are slaves for wearing the mask, yada, yada, yada. This was his style. He thought that COVID wasn't real. He thought it was a total scam, fugazi. And there was a huge division in my family. And of course, because he was disrespectful, I was like, well, I don't want to have anything to do with my uncle the way that he treated my father. I wish I would have been there to stand up for my dad and kind of play the middle path, because I agreed with what he says, but not the manner in which he presented it. Long story short, my uncle ended up getting sick. And because he thought the virus was totally fake and it's all a scam, he stayed in his apartment by himself, and he didn't go to the hospital. He didn't seek any support or any natural remedies. And he was taken to the hospital in an ambulance, and he died a day or two later. And there was never the opportunity to heal that relationship, because I loved my uncle. He was one of my mom's only siblings that would show up to every single family event. And it was a huge loss for her and a huge loss for our family. And looking back, I wish I just would have let that go and still loved the guy and been compassionate for him. So I just really want to strongly reiterate that nothing is more important than the relationships that we have with our family, with our friends, and our community. And we should not let these differences divide us and distract us from what really matters, which is that connection. Come on. All right. Okay, so after I lived with my parents for a few months, I upgraded and rented a few rooms in my good friend Emilio's place. There he is right there. That's my man. Give it up for Emilio, ladies and gentlemen. And I was like, I got to tell you, Emilio, if I'm going to move into your place, I got two kids that I could describe as feral, And so we were upstairs, and he had a little bedroom right downstairs. So I don't want you to feel annoyed or tense. He's like, no, it's okay. I got you, brother. And I know he felt annoyed and tense anyway, but he loved me so much. He's such a good guy. So thank you, Emilio. But this was great. It was an upgrade for my parents, but it still wasn't ideal. I was a grown man. I wanted to have my own place. I got my lovely girlfriend at the time, who on one of our first dates, I asked her to help me clean out my minivan. That was just full of crap, and the windows wouldn't roll down, and the AC didn't work. And that's how I knew that she wasn't in it for the money, because I didn't have any. And we leaned pretty heavy on her credit card. I thought she was going to say, we still do. So me and Becca were dating, and we were just spending all the time together. She was staying in San Marcos at the time on a 50-acre property, and she was coming up, communing with me. Every once in a while, I'd go stay down with her, and we wanted to live together. She got a really cool job selling tiny homes in this intentional community, which she learned so much, and we actually had the opportunity to move into her tiny home and live there free of charge because it was part of her work arrangement. There's a quick lesson in there for folks that are feeling like they're struggling financially. There's opportunity when you're able to think creatively. And in all honesty, what I shared before, like when you can overcome those limiting beliefs and you can just with so much conviction, align yourself and just know with certainty that you are going to achieve your goals, you'll find that God, creator of the universe, begins to conspire in your favor if you're open to the opportunity. And that was an opportunity that was so beneficial for our family. But at the same time, we were living in a 399 square foot tiny home with me, my girlfriend at the time, and my 2 kids. We were still going through legal struggles with all this divorce craziness. It was affecting the kids negatively. It was an extremely difficult period because we were on top of each other, and they didn't have their own space, really. We carved out these little mini bedrooms with little wall dividers upstairs in the loft for the kids. It wasn't optimal, and we decided we were going to finally fulfill our big dream of owning land. So we started to get real clear on what our vision was. And here's another great tip or tactic that someone can use for doing anything in life. Get extremely crystal clear on what it is that you want in life. Because if you don't know what it is that you want, how can you ever hope to attain it? So we wrote down a list of like 10 characteristics for our place. 10 acres or more, within 45-minute drive to Austin and our family that's there. We wanted it to be partially pasture, partially wooded. We wanted a guest house. There was all sorts of stuff. And we ended up finding a property that checked off 7 of those 10 things. And now the question is like, well, how the hell are we going to pay for it? So Rebecca was doing great and had an incredible income and managed to put some money aside for our down payment. This was jacking with my ego and my masculinity because she had all the money together and I was still scrapping by financially, my little fledgling kratom business. And I said, you know what? I believe that this is our destiny. I want to be an equal contributor to our down payment. So it was at that time that I started Live Free Academy, the company that I'm here today representing. We put together an offer to teach people about cryptocurrency. I'd never done an online course or anything before. I've been talking about crypto, teaching people about crypto. We put together an offer, and the very first 2 or 3 days, I managed to make $140,000 by selling a $200 course. And it was such an eye opener, and it revealed many things to me. Among them, it showed me like, wow, I have been limiting my own success by thinking that abundance and prosperity at that magnitude is inaccessible to me, that it takes so much hard work in order to accomplish something like that. But in all reality, whenever I just said, I'm going to share my gifts with the world and ask for a couple $100 in exchange, it absolutely exploded. And so I was able to contribute. We ended up getting a mortgage, and we bought a 10-acre homestead in Central Texas, just east of Austin. We call it Radical Roots Ranch. It was awesome. We absolutely loved it. And this was us, right? But we hit resistance and came back down to support because sure enough, right after we moved in, not only was it crazy expensive to furnish the place, but we realized that we had to get a new air conditioner. And then the water heater broke and flooded the kitchen and destroyed all the cabinets. All that had to get replaced. I don't know, there's a whole list of other things. We needed new appliances, all sorts of stuff. So this was like, wow, home ownership. I was always a renter and stuff. We never really had to pay for all that stuff. So this was a huge eye opener. But it didn't break us. We said, you know what? We're going to commit. We're going to continue to work. We're going to make this happen. We're going to overcome these financial struggles. And we were able to make that happen. We added a solar system onto the home. We got chickens. We got ducks. We have quail now. And so that was us living on the property. But now we're like, it's always been our ambition, not just to have a homestead, which is Rebecca and I, but to have a community, because it really takes a village. And I know that there's so many people in this. Raise your hand if you're somebody that desires to live in community, as in cooperatively living together with other people. Okay, pretty good chunk. Excellent. You know, I was reflecting on that earlier. Why is there such a strong desire for that? And I think a lot of us missed out on like really authentic human connection and relationship. And we're desiring that. We're seeking that because we missed out on it. Well, this is something that we desired. It's something that both Becca and I wanted for many years independently of each other. And so we said, hey, let's make this happen. So we put 3 RV pads on the 10-acre homestead, and we have 2 community members now that are permanent. One of them's a family, and they have 3 kiddos. The 3rd child was actually birthed on the property in an unassisted birth in our guest house. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. Wow. I tell you, I have so much respect for women and birthing, whether it's in a hospital or home or assisted or unassisted. Woo! Give it up for the ladies, the creators. That's right. So now we have an extra amenity, a birthing center on site. So they're there. And then Ryan Maniti. Is there Live Free Academy clients that know good old Ryan? Ryan's great. He's my right-hand guy, great guy. I think I'm a little too hard on him, though. I hope it doesn't run off. But to be honest, just some little vulnerability. The 2 people that I'm closest to right now that are in my life regularly, my lovely wife and Ryan, are the people that I treat the poorest. You guys resonate with that? Now, of course, I'm great to my lovely wife, but I treat her sometimes like an ass, anger, and like raising my voice and stuff. Same thing with this guy. It's because they're closest to me. What is that all about? Because I feel comfortable with them? When Miriam was talking earlier, I was like, this is stage therapy when she started the thing, right? And Rebecca, too, it's like stage therapy. So, all right, we're not going to get too deep into stage therapy. Anyway, Ryan lives on the property with his lovely wife. And there's a family that lives there. And then our good friend Jeff is staying there with us temporarily as well. And we actually have ambitions to create 4 other pad sites on this property in order to have more people living there. But I got to tell you, there was 2 community members that we really leaned heavily on that moved on. One of them was a nomad. It was in his name, nomad. So I guess we should have assumed he wasn't going to be there forever. The other one was great as well. But I'm going through the ups and downs, and this was actually one of the downsides because we had them there as part of our community, but they ended up rambling on. And looking back, I think it might have been because we leaned too heavily on them and relied on them too much, and maybe they felt like that was out of balance. So I just really want to encourage people, when it comes to living in community, one of the most important things that you could do is keep the channels of communication open, and always, always, always be self-reflecting and do check-in meetings with people, because there may be people that are harboring resentment or feeling frustrated or annoyed, and they don't have the courage to bring it up to you. But if you check in regularly, it creates that opportunity. So that was a hard part of living together that we were able to overcome. And we got some amazing community members now. Okay, so all the while, we got this 10-acre homestead. And Rebecca and I have been priming about doing this big 100-acre development. So we have the homestead. We barely even use like 2 or 3 of the acres. But for some reason, Rebecca and I are like, let's get a bigger property and let's do this huge, ambitious thing with 120 community members and a Texas-shaped lazy river. And we started putting this out, and we started working towards this. And so here we are. You know, we got our 10-acre homestead. Things are going great. Back to the support and resistance. And we're coming up. We got this big ambitions. We want to go bigger. We want to do this big replicatable model and build it. But we hit resistance because in all reality, we didn't have the skill set to build that, but the skills come easily. I don't think we were spiritually ready. And to come back to the vulnerability, at this time, I started getting anxious and insecure about it because I was so overwhelmed with the workload that we already had. And I started lashing out against my lovely wife. And in the moment, I wasn't aware of that's a huge part of what's going on here. But upon further reflection, I realized, man, I was like self-sabotaging what it is that I wanted because I didn't feel like I deserved it and I didn't feel like I was ready. So I really want to encourage you guys, if you have ambitious goals or any goal for that matter, just be aware as you continue to move towards those goals closer and closer, especially if you push through that resistance and you're like impressed. You're like, wow, I actually pulled that off. You may find yourself self-sabotaging. What that comes back to is that inner voice that we all picked up. Oftentimes being bullied in school, or maybe one of our parents was putting us down. And you're like, you don't deserve this. You can't pull this off. You're not capable of this. You don't have the knowledge to do it. So rather than being aware of that and quieting that voice, shut the fuck up. Of course you can do it. You end up self-sabotaging. And I realized later that's exactly what I was doing. We still have ambitions to do this big development, but we realized, like Miriam said, work with the tools you have, right? Work with the tools you have. We already have a 10-acre homestead that we live on. We already have community members there. We already have food production systems going. Why won't we just build that out, prove to ourselves we can make it happen, create a model there, and then expand from there, right? So one thing that was another friction point as we were working towards this 100-acre development, we spent thousands of dollars on an attorney to create a real estate syndication. This is when I was more profit-minded, business-minded. This development, in addition to being a great place to demonstrate, exit, and build and live together in community, it's also going to be a profitable opportunity for investors, and we're going to build wealth with this. And so we need to have a LLC and a 506C, and we got to have accredited investors that can have an expected return on their investment, and we're going to do this pro forma analysis, blah, 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 blah. And we realized after working with this attorney, and we paid him like $6,000, and we didn't even complete the thing because he had no idea what we're talking about with some mumbo jumbo community. They're used to apartment complexes. And we just got an email from the guy saying we still owe $900, but they didn't even finish the job. And so as soon as we get back to Texas, wait a second. It's not easy to argue with an attorney about stuff like that, but we'll figure it out. Anyway, long story short, we realized that what we were trying to do using these old matrix systems was causing friction because we're trying to create the new earth. We're trying to create a community that's in alignment with our values as free, powerful, beautiful human beings. And by using legacy systems that are profit-oriented, that have to ask permission from the government, that people get involved with in order to make money, it wasn't in alignment and it wasn't jiving, and it was creating so much friction and frustration because we just couldn't wrap our heads around how to make it happen. Well, around this time, Rebecca was in Costa Rica visiting Earthwaking Village, and there's this guy that was there, and that's a part of their community, and we'd heard about him before. We did a meeting with him in River Amani, and she's like, you guys got to check this guy out. It's all about the private realm and private membership associations, and it's not about profit or wealth. It's about stewarding the land and stewarding God's creation. And old John was like, that sounds like a bunch of hippy-dippy mumbo-jumbo, just waiting for the government to come kick the door down. We ain't doing that. We're trying to build wealth here. Yeah. I wasn't open to all that private realm stuff, in all honesty. I thought it was like, you can do this stuff, and the government's still going to come crack the whip, and it's not in alignment. It's just hippy-dippy, like sign the black card with the Treasury Department, this, that, and the other. But I've since come around to it in a major way. And Becca was down in Earthwaking Village, and she didn't even know Bradley Logan was going to be there, but he was there. Jonathan England introduced him to her. We met Bradley, who speaks. Is Bradley in here? There he is. There's my guy, Bradley Logan. So, yeah, give it up for Brad. And so we meet with Brad, and it's funny because the first meeting that I had with Brad, like 6 months before this period, not before today, but we met with Brad, and he's like, yeah, man, it's all in the private realm. We're doing divine law and God's work. And I was like, this fucking hippie guy, what the hell? This guy's weird. Who is this guy? Because I wasn't open to it. I was insecure. I was afraid. I didn't have the confidence to put myself forward and trust that if we're doing God's work on this planet, we're going to have the protection that God will provide so we can continue to move the ball forward towards light, away from darkness, right? And so we did another meeting with him, and it clicked. He communicated the same message, but I was more open to receive that message. And since then, we have started a ministry of nature. It's called Freedom Family Fellowship. Our mission is to help others find harmony within themselves, find harmony with one another, and to find harmony with the land. And it's our belief when we can achieve that greater harmony, we can deepen our connection with God. And that's what our ministry of nature is all about. It's a 508c1a, meaning we don't file a 990. We don't report any money that comes in to the organization. We have a non-statutory trust that stewards resources. So right now we have a bank account. This was really freaking cool, by the way. I don't know if y'all heard Bradley's talk, but it's this Trinity model. So you have a 508c1a. That's in the United States, but you can also start a church or ministry of nature in other countries as well. We have a non-statutory trust that stewards resources. And then we have a private membership agreement that operates the agreements and the understandings amongst the people that are participating in this ministry of nature or the other PMAs that we have associated with our church. And I tell you what, it was extremely liberating to open a bank account without having any legal document or any permission asked from the government whatsoever. Now, the woman, the banker, was kind of like, what the heck are you guys talking about? And they're like, well, I got to check with the legal department to see if we're able to do this, because it was just a non-statutory trust. You don't hand over your trust documents. You give them a minimal amount of information. But a lot of people go into that relationship from a place of fear, like we're doing something wrong and there's some sketchy stuff going on here. But nothing could be further from the truth. We're simply trustees that are opening a bank account that will serve as a bridge between the private realm and the matrix world, because there still is value from time to time in having a bank account, having deposits come in, being able to steward resources, like what entity or what organization can hold title to a piece of land. So it's like, we got to check with the legal department. And then they got back with me and they're like, well, do you have a certificate of formation? That's what you get whenever you start an LLC or a nonprofit. And I'm like, no, it's an unincorporated church. And they're like, hold on one sec. They go back to the legal department. Okay, come on in and sign the documents. So this stuff works. We have the church. We've received crypto donations. We've received dollar donations. We're now organizing an effort to bring some resources in so that we can pay off our mortgage and put our existing community in trust in the private realm. We do have ambitions to fundraise, to bring on resources, to acquire a larger property. But one thing that I've had an insight during this amazing event is we always seem to be desiring something out there in the future that we haven't attained yet. This freedom, a free society, we'll have it all figured out in the future, when in all reality, everything that we have, everything that we need, we have right now. This is some of that DAG. Can you guys help me start a trend of calling him DAG instead of Dan? DAG? DAG. This is something that, you guys with me on that? All right, DAG. Thanks, DAG. Great talk, DAG. So DAG was like, yeah, everything that we need, we have right now, right? And so one of my self-reflections during this event is I'm always desiring something bigger and grander and better. And maybe you guys resonate with that, right? Like, we got to get the land. We got to move to the community. We got to figure out the crypto. I can't wait for my crypto wallet to go up in value, blah, 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 blah. And that creates this friction and this discontent within ourselves. And so I just really want to encourage you guys and encourage myself to do everything we can to recognize that we have everything we need right now, to be at peace with that, and to understand that it's internal, it's the inside game, it's a spiritual game, it's a mindset game that determines how free we truly are. So even if we think we're politically free, we're not buying into their system, but we're always yearning for something bigger, something more, then that, my friends, is a form of enslavement in and of itself. Okay. Yeah. All right. Okay, so I really want to encourage people to work with the tools that you have just like Miriam said, to recognize that we're already free right now. We are doing a summit. We're doing a virtual summit coming up in February where we're going to teach people, if you're looking for a community to move to, we're going to help you connect with your communities and to highlight some really cool freedom communities. If you're wanting to buy land and start your own community, or if you already have a community, you're looking to expand it, to grow it, to take it to the next level, we're hosting this event. It's absolutely free. You guys can sign up at livefree.academy/community, livefree.academy/community. I think it's February 22nd and 23rd. So that's coming up. We're doing the Exit and Build Land Summit again. This time we're going to be at Joel Salatin's Polyface Farms. So for those of you that are familiar with Joel, he does incredible work. He's a renegade. He does a lot of awesome stuff when it comes to regenerative agriculture. We really love him too, because he not only does he do the work with regenerative agriculture, but he's also quite the rebel. And since he's been speaking at the events, the Exit and Build events, he's actually adopted Exit and Build language just in his day-to-day life, which is really cool, planting seeds everywhere that we can. So I want to invite you guys to check that out as well. So here's what I believe is fundamentally important for our movement. The community piece couldn't be more important. I strongly believe that in an ideal world, we are living in community on the same piece of land outside of the cities. I know that's not for everyone. We don't want to leave our friends in the cities behind. So when I say community, I mean communities as in people cooperatively living on the same land, an intentional community, but also freedom communities with people that know their neighbors and they're connected with other freedom lovers in the area. I think that it's by time that we get organized amongst all of these tribes, right? There's so many different people all over the planet, all over the world, and there's a predator class too. And we think that the predator class is all powerful and they got all these big goals and they're accelerating their technocracy, which they are. But in all reality, we outnumber them vastly. Even the people in our freedom movement, we outnumber them, but they out-organize us. They have plans, they have goals, they have regular meetings that they do where they're like, how are we doing on advancing our 2030 agenda, our sustainable development goals? So I really want to encourage folks in your own lives to become more goal-oriented. One of the things that we do at Live Free Academy is teach people to come up with an activation plan. And the activation plan is essentially your most critical and your most important exit and build goals. And one thing you could do to kind of prioritize where to start is to use Napoleon Hill's concept of accurate thinking and to just get real with yourself and recognize what areas of my life am I most dependent on the beast system, right? So some people are growing food and they're connected with the local community supported agriculture program, but all of their income comes from Social Security. Or some people have crypto and they've been trading outside the system for years now, but all of their food comes from the grocery store. Right? So just get real with yourself and identify if the government or the predator class were to try to twist my arm into getting me to do something that I don't want to do, would I be able to say no because I've become independent of their systems? So that's a great mental exercise that you can do. Yeah, it's a great mental exercise to do in order to really identify where to start. And then from there, you come up with concrete goals. Measurable goals, specific goals, goals that have targets and dates. And those goals, you really think like, okay, well, if my goal is to get 25% of my food from my own property and from local food sources, get food from someone whose hand I've shaked, what do I need to do in order to make that happen? Well, first, let me put together a list of all the places in the area, and I'm going to go start visiting them. Okay, first, let me see what is the growing season right now. How many garden beds do I need to do? Let me invite a permaculturalist to come, blah, 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 blah. Just really think in terms of strategy. What is it going to take in order to accomplish this goal, right? But don't stop there, of course. Find other people in your area or even online that have similar goals and work together and be accountability partners and support one another. Okay, guys? So that's in our own life. But the exit and build thing is twofold. There's the inner exit and build game, and then there's the meta exit and build strategy game. That's where we achieve goals and we work together as a community, right? So we learned from Hannah Maria, who's doing so much incredible stuff, and they're like advanced in their organization, and they're still learning and still growing. What worked for you guys? What does the PMA membership agreement look like? What are the types of activities that you do? Derek just got the land over here. What type of process are you guys going through to vet people and to meet people? We create a hive mind, in essence, because we're stronger when we work together. There's knowledge that's out there that some people have that others don't. So let's work on our own exit and build goals to become independent and prepared. But because we all have compassionate hearts, and because we recognize that we're not just in this for ourselves, we're in it for the future 7 generations that are yet to be born, let's work together and collaborate to create systems that will lay the foundation and be the infrastructure that future generations will inherit, so they have free time to be creative, to connect deeper with their spiritual selves without having to worry about this oppressive predator class that's breathing down their neck. Yeah. And on that same note, one thing that I've recognized, and I had the insight last night, was the concert last night. There's been so much going on. This 5-day thing's really getting to me. It's a lot. And imagine being Derek and Miriam, the ones that aren't just like enjoying it and talking and workshopping. They're like making sure everything's going. So let's give it up one more time for Derek and his team. Woo! But I came to realize, walking through this concert, seeing all you beautiful people dancing, seeing DAG get out of his comfort zone and mix it up, seeing all these incredible artists, just seeing the artists and the diversity of music. We have our own culture. We have our own music for our movement, right? But seeing everybody living in the moment in a state of pure bliss, to bring it back to how I started the talk, we've already won. We're already free right now. Let us not allow fear of the unknown, fear of the predator class, create stress within us. That doesn't mean we shouldn't be urgent in achieving more freedom, more prosperity, building these communities. But let's align not with distress. Distress is what happens when you're constantly being inundated with fear porn, with sensationalist headlines, when you spend a significant amount of your time and you point a significant amount of your attention towards the problem. It leads to distress. That's my cue. It leads to distress, and distress takes us out of a state of freedom, harmony, and balance. So rather than focus on the bad things in the world, focus on the world that you want to live in. Focus on the beauty and the wonder and the connections and the dancing and the bass and the beats and the music and the friendship and kinship that you've had at this event. And recognize that at the end of the day, even if we didn't do any more work, we've already accomplished what we came here to do. We are free, beautiful, powerful human beings. And the more we come to recognize that, the more that we focus on that which we want in life, the more we'll be able to shine with that creative light and divinity that lies within each and every one of us. So thank you so much for being a part of this movement. It's an honor to be here with you guys. Peace and freedom. Let's go.